Thank you, Chris, for your help with your technology. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. A nice sunny, warm evening. This is awesome. Most of you know me. I'm Allison Anderson and Christopher McCarthy. He's from the Rochester office. We're both in commercial. We've both taken the commercial courses through KW, and we're here tonight just to talk a little bit more about just a sliver of the aspects of commercial. And we'll talk about things such as the industrial part, the office spaces, renting and buying. Also talking about retail plazas and family, which is my wheelhouse, and business wheelhouse is more retail. So we'll start with industrial.
Okay, let me bring that up and get into share mode.
Yeah. And industrials, this actually happens to be my listing. It's a warehouse out in Brashville, Yates County. It's 14,000 square feet. And industrial is kind of interesting because it can have so many different uses behind it. And what I would advise people to do is just talk to the zoning code to see what it will help, what it will enjoy to you could have in that space. So for now, right now, it's a woodworking shop, and it was a tire place that housed a lot of tires, and the guys did repairs and that sort of thing. The town itself said that you could also do retail space in there if you wish, and storage, of course. And if you want to do something different than what they've got listed for the main uses, you can always ask the town if there's a special use permit that they need to do for that space. The other thing is there's a lot of power going to this place, so you can see that there's like phase 3 electric, and also there's a lot of spans, open spans. I was waiting for Chris to get to like a big area there. Well, you got some storage in the back. Keep going. There's like clear span construction in there. There's a lot of, as I said, a lot of power, 3-phase electric, which is nice. There we go. Here's your truss construction, and it's clear span construction, and you really like to have spaces in between the posts, because in that way you can get your equipment in and out, or your cars in and out, or your tires in and out that the fellow had before that. A lot of people liked it when they see that in a warehouse. It also has a really nice concrete floor. You like to make sure you have that they can move their heavy equipment around, and it's nice and thick to hold all the weight. Other thing is overhead doors. That's really the key, right? Couple backwards.
I know there are overhead doors in here.
You missed them. It's going too fast. Okay, well, that's right. Yeah, that's a good. So we get this really nice tall one. It's like 16 feet high overhead door. And of course, if you have a nice big truck or an RV, that's awesome, right? You can get some equipment in that way. And here you've got a couple 10 feet high overhead doors, and then the average with a little, what they call a man door. So sometimes you can split these up, but this one in particular, you can split it up, rent off that half, rent off this half. So there's a lot of different ways you can utilize the warehouse. And it's just metal construction. The tricky things about the warehouse, though, is the inspections. We've got like with residential, we have the home inspection, but with industrial, we have what's called phase 1 inspection. So instead of wanting to know what you need to repair in the building, we need to know what's going on in the ground, like if there's any chemical spills in the ground. And oh, that's a great picture, yeah, and that sort of thing. This one I had to do a little research. I called LaBella Engineers, and I found out that there was a phase 1 done in 2013 because it was sold back then. to the township. And they found that, they did just the phase one construction, and so what's nice about that, phase one environmental, excuse me. What's nice about that is when you go to buy it, you can do just a transitional one, it's like $900 as opposed to $1,800. And then, if you wish to pursue a little bit further, that's a whole nother chapter of environmentals. And then this space used to be a gas station itself. And I also called Rubella Engineers and I found out that they pulled all 6 tanks out of there, and so this space is clear. There's no problems with the environment or gas spills or anything like that. But that's, was a
So,
big. Go ahead.
question.
Yeah,
There was a few tanks in there
yes. In here,
and you have to remove it.
yes.
What you have to do?
What do you
Let's
mean?
say if you're the buyer.
Oh,
And then you
so-
try to buy the place and then you find out later. There were tanks in there. Did they still have to remove it or the buyer?
No, so I think, so if you do find that there's an environmental problem, yes. I think maybe Chris can probably, are you more familiar with that, Chris, that part of things?
So
Because
basically, that's why you have a phase one, to give you suspect, and then if suspect is saying there are tanks or high probability, then you have to move to a phase two where they do drilling, they do more invasive procedures. And phase one doesn't go on public record. It searches public records to tell you what's out there. Phase two goes on public record. So at that point, you cannot put Pandora back in the box. You have opened it. So that's why phase ones people are more comfortable with, because there is no record of it. So if there is something, you can stop right there and be like, oh, no, we're not going forward. Phase two, it becomes no longer reversible. You have now put it on public record. You've now potentially triggered liability and other things to happen. Phase three is the more intensive remediation. So if you don't do phase ones, or if you don't do the phases properly, your liability is open. So environmental people don't care who they get. They're just looking for the deepest pockets. So they'll start with who owns it now. You're liable for it. You have no more money. They bankrupted you. They're going to go to the next person that owned it before you until they get enough money to clean it up. And that's what the phase one basically puts we establish a cut point in time and history. There is one industrial one I was looking at for a client, and they basically said, don't worry. We've already found the guilty party. He's 2 miles up the road who polluted the site. He's already paid for and taken care of it. The buyer will not be liable for all the contamination on site. Fabulous to know that it's being cleaned, and the person who's guilty of it 2 miles up the road, but who cares? They're paying for it. Your buyer is not.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's definitely something that it's out there every once in a while. So. And of course, with bank financing too, we gotta have the phase one. Yeah, there it all is. Any other questions on the warehouse piece?
Who does the phase one?
So usually the seller, or excuse me, the buyer pays for the phase one. Is that what you're asking? Like who pays for the phase one? The buyer would pay for the phase one.
Same concept as a home inspection.
Mhm.
Buyers pay because no one's going to accept a home inspection by a seller or a property because it's biased.
Right.
And there are some companies that will accept it, but they'll have the engineering company that did it sign off that it was that it's unbiased, that there's nothing here that would potentially favor the seller over the buyer. And then we're on to
the RPR, like a few months ago, I had a research for a restaurant space. And the restaurant wanted to know, they wanted to mimic their business down south. So I looked up, Chris told me,
Okay, yeah,
you
just,
gotta look up the traffic volume. You gotta look up, what is the income level of the people in the area. To make sure that the sales would be similar up north as they were down south. So, Chris said, you guys, you gotta look to see what the traffic volume is. There's this handy little thing called RPR. It's
commercial site
commercial site
selection.
selection, yeah, and, Chris will go through it right now to
Yeah.
show you what we can do. We can get an idea of primary age groups, which is nice. Some people wanna hit the college crowd. Some people wanna hit the older, senior crowd. All depends on what what the buyer or the person that's renting the space wants. So, a lot of people love Pittsburgh Plaza. Which you're probably all familiar with that, it has the higher incomes and. On Monroe Avenue, you've got a lot of traffic. Great traffic volume coming in off of the 590, 490. Got a couple schools close by, they also like to know what kind of businesses are close by. And, yeah, a whole bunch of cool stuff.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a few criteria like the restaurant, when we did this search for the restaurant, so I'm like, hold on, I'm doing this backwards.
Oh. No, I don't know if I did it that. much in depth,
You
but-
did it, you did
I
it,
did.
don't worry.
Okay. You say so. But what's cool about this thing is it'll run the analysis and put it in a nice pretty little bowl for you. And then you can bring it to your client, like you work hours and hours on it.
And we can just say, show me zip codes that are possible matches. And it will rank them for you based on the median income, the average household income, the wine consumed away from home, annual expenditure, alcohol consumed away from home, annual expenditure, dining out at a restaurant, annual expenditure. And then from there, you reverse engineer what the sales could be based on the square footage to see if there's enough room in the market for a competitor, or if you're going to have to cannibalize an existing location, or if you can overtake another competitor. But very nice, and you really just click a few of these and say run analysis, and it will start to generate reports, and we'll do a trade area report, run report. How did I do Dunkirk this time? Okay, I left it on. Oops, I left it on Dunkirk.
You like to-
So you'll see a Dunkirk report instead of the Rochester report.
So you hear the little doorbell that's in, right? Your report is in.
And then we go in, yeah, there's my built-in site. Here it is showing the Dunkirk one. Giving the client all the stats for the wine, the food, all that. So they can basically say which set of criteria meets their needs. So maybe they're really like, we care more about dining out at restaurant. Is there a spot that's higher? Or they may say, we care more about wine consumed away from home. So they may say, okay, 125 isn't what we're looking for. We're looking in these two zip codes instead, because they're higher.
Amazing.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? I love this. I love this too. Sure.
Let's gonna say if you're looking for a restaurant, like a Greek restaurant, Italian restaurant, whatever.
So-
Can you look in there?
Are you looking for the stats, or looking for where to place them, or where to?
It's not so much competition with others. If you want to put on an
So,
Italian restaurant,
so if
what
you're
do you
doing
have
that,
to
we
do?
could just go in and pick on what they consume, and there are categories for. No, as I do this backwards research, site selection, and we'll just say. Okay, come on, yes, New York. So we'll say what they buy. We'll go into more detail on dining out. And look at, we can do dining out restaurants for lunch, snacks. What type of restaurant? So you're saying it's more dinner? Okay. Then we're gonna add another criteria. And, oh, come on here. Who they are. Let's say, what's the food price?
You know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I do.
Are we saying 20 a plate or 15?
You're talking about. Angelica,
Yeah,
probably, but for dinner, is there a 20 plate for her? Or is it-
probably 20 one plate, maybe less, but let's gonna say about 20 or more.
Okay, so we're gonna probably say net worth, if it's 20 a plate, we're gonna push it up to people probably between 75 and 250,000 would be who we'd be looking for. And we've got one more criteria, so let's add in what they do. Industry employment. So these people are probably in finance, management. Shoot, I can't do that. We'll say management for business. Run analysis. And this will tell you where, based on average to high, and we'll say we care more about the restaurant. Let's see if it'll give us run there. We'll say, give me zip codes. Update. And there is some basic idea of where that occurs based on a zip code. And then we have to go and research those areas and research all different systems to figure out what's available or what is in the market already.
So when you say research, Chris, like say you pick Hilton, you wanna know how many Mexican restaurants are in there.
So yeah, if you're looking for Italian restaurants, Mexican restaurants, whatever restaurants, in RPR, you can go in and do more research because in their maps on their main page, you can go in and say, put in points of interest. It basically pulls through Google and it's like, here are all the restaurants. So that's a very simple way to do it, but it's useful, quick and easy to get something started. Okay, now we're on to.
So now we're on to after that, that is great question, great question. The office space.
Okay, so we're out of matrix, so we're over here. Okay. Okay, so this is from the CBRE office that's in the Commercial Realtor Society. We just did an event there, so you may recognize it because it's Woodcliff Hotel. It's just behind them.
And this is what I was telling you about. And I think I've got the floor plan in your handout too.
Okay.
And they were renting anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 square feet, I think.
Yep, I'm just going to scroll through their
Yeah.
brochure.
And really nice, they have the works. Outdoor putting.
They do have an outdoor putting green.
You spa, fitness center, so you go to work, so they're just trying to draw.
The smallest that they can rent.
The smallest they can rent is 2,000. Your people are looking way less. Okay.
And that's it,
Yeah.
like, look clean.
But yeah, they're really on the fancy end of things, or the high quality.
They're in the
A,
Class A
Class
category.
A, yeah, they Class A construction. Then there's Class B.
Basically, Class A is something that has all the bells and whistles current with the times, on trend, so it's built in the last anywhere, I think it's between, depending on the product type and markets, between the last 5 to 10 years. B is typically past that. Features are nice, but they may not be completely on point. C is out of date, irrelevant features and functions like fax machines. Who needs a room for a fax machine?
Right.
So you're typically in like ABC. Things nicknamed like a trophy property typically mean it's a very fine margin on the value of the property to the income. It's a trophy. It's not going to generate as much income as other properties because the amount you're spending to acquire it. It's more for the prestige factor. So, okay, we've got that one, and you can see their nice 360 around the property to give everyone context. Yeah, 2,000s are minimum. They can go up to 100,000. And it's a direct lease, meaning it's leasing the space. You may have a sublease where if the tenant couldn't get out of the contract, may have negotiated with the landlord to still be on for liability, but acting as another landlord within the landlord structure. You'll find that a lot with a lot of the affordable housing, that the state is the owner of the property and they have contracted with a landlord to develop the property and manage the property. Leases in there are not pleasant because it's sublease and the state has to get involved. But subleases with private entities aren't necessarily easier, as you have to do 2 layers for everything. Okay, so we did industrial, we've done office. What are we on to next?
You're on to the retail plazas. The red one.
Okay, we're in Redmond. Okay. So retail plaza is not always what you think because everything's adaptive reuse nowadays. So this plaza is up in North Clinton. It is originally an industrial building. Back in the day, it was a clothing uniform manufacturer. Last 40, 50 years, it's been used as a neighborhood shopping center. And as a neighborhood shopping center, it's serving a smaller market area. And that's how the International Council of Shopping Centers, which has been renamed, but I can't remember their new name, but the same abbreviation, has a definition for every type of shopping center, from little small ones to the mega super regionals. This one's around 150,000 square foot, up to 3 stories. Has lots of potential with around 260 some parking spaces. It crosses an entire city block. The primary thing with retail is you've got 3 to 4 different rent styles that are going to be occurring. You've got things that are full service gross leases that are basically you pay a rent, everything's included. Modified gross, or most of the gross leases will be, your utilities are separate. Then you're going to get into something called the nets, where people are going to pay common area maintenance or operating costs. They're going to pay a portion of the insurance for the building. They're going to pay a portion of the taxes for the building. And not necessarily usable space. They're going to be on rentable space. So there may be a factor of the hallway. So if you're in a mall, like Eastview Mall, Marketplace Mall, the space you're being billed for goes out, say, 3 to 5 feet from your storefront into the hallway, because you're paying that portion because that's used to you and it's a common area. Other things you'll hear are percentage rents. Those I expect will probably come back into fashion because it means you can offer a lower rent as a landlord and you make it up on a percentage of the gross sales that a store does. Also means you get to review the books of the tenant every year or so, or every month. And that is the best thing for a shopping center to know is, how is this business doing? Do I need to plan to lease it out? Are they doing fabulous and I don't have to worry? Every business has a factor that's associated gross sales to rent. Every industry is different. But there is an old book called ULI Dollars and Cents. It's out of print. You can find it in libraries. It's probably 20 years old now, but the proportions still stay the same. To say 6% of your sales should be attributed to rent, 25% of your sales should be attributed to rent, depending on what industry you're in. So salons might be higher, a bookstore might be lower. again, it depends on the business, but there are sort of ranges that it's expected. And that's again, how you sort of determine rent is gross sales that are expected, which is why the rent in downtown Rochester can be $24 to $28 a square foot per year. And then you're paying common area costs, you're paying taxes and insurance also, along with your regular utilities.
But Chris, can you like differentiate between the two, like for everybody to be not know what common area cost is, what would that entail?
Common area is pretty much anything and everything that a landlord can throw into an expense on the property. So that can be your hallways, common bathrooms, that can be lighting, that can be snow plowing, that can be repaving parking lot. That's where an attorney must be familiar with commercial deals to make sure it's done right, because otherwise, one common one is leased space or leasable space. They have a drastic difference. Because if some place is 100,000 square feet of leasable space, and your client only takes up 10,000, they should only be getting roughly a 10% charge of the expenses. While if the other 90,000 isn't rented in the contract, said leased space, the only leased space is 10,000 square foot out of this 100,000 square foot building. So leased space is 100% your tenant. So they get 100% of the bill, even though they're taking up only 10% of building. So leased versus leasable can make a massive difference in what's getting billed to someone.
They're at least these fair, they're only taking 10% and they get billed the whole.
Yeah, so that's why you want to make sure it says leasable.
And make sure the attorney.
Yes, and the attorney
Use it.
needs to know what they're doing. If they don't do commercial deals, find an attorney that does.
Mhm.
And things that are important to companies like here, this plaza, no grocery store will move in to this location at this point because all of them have locations too close to this. And they have a physical barrier of the river and a physical barrier of 104. So those are things that, just like neighborhoods and school districts, that will cut off and change where a business will choose to put a location.
And then also.
Yeah, and then I gotta see who's on. Oh, there's Renee.
Oh, hey, Renee.
So that's what's going on. Most time clients will want to see a rent roll, want to see who are the tenants. But other than that, that's your basics of retail. And then we have to market out. We've got right now 5 different channels we have to market out to. We also have the KW commercial site and Crexy. Some people use a company called CoStar and LoopNet for marketing. There's pretty much, if you can think of it as a type of a use of a space, there is a separate 2 to 3 websites to list that space on, because there is no such thing as an MLS for commercial. So finding 2 properties could take 2 weeks, 2 months, because you have to go through all these different systems to actually find a space. And then it's not even there half the time because most of it's owned by developers. You have to go to the developer's website to find out about space that's available. So,
Or know somebody,
Oh,
know somebody.
yeah, you got to do a lot of knowing, know someone.
Right, to call, yeah.
Okay, and then we're on to,
But yeah, then we're on to like the multifamily, and I forgot to tell you, Chris,
this one.
yeah, there's that one, but then also the add on Oxford Street out of Woodstock. There's a multi-unit, just a pretty picture.
Okay,
We can do that
later.
So, yeah, so for multifamilies, you typically want to know what the rents are in that area that you're looking. So one of the pieces of homework they had us do for commercial is to just simply look at the Canandaigua area, price, bedrooms, utilities, snow removal. Does it include utilities? Does it not? I think I've sent you 2 halves there, unfortunately, Chris. So, sorry about that, but we wanna know what the cost of the rent is per square foot in the Canandaigua area. I took out the HOA. Whether it's lake access or not, and then like the net value on that. The other thing is you wanna know the vacancy in the area, like get a handle on that. And then, you want to know if the landlord is keeping up on the property. You wanna make sure that the roof is good, just like, you know, residential, similar, you know. The boiler, the basics of the condition, because you wanna know how much money you will need to put into the property, or maybe it's a turn.
Almost.
So, you wanna make sure that the landlord is statuted with the cost of future repairs into the property, and if not, it'll be up to you. You can bring a contractor in and just say, hey, this is what we need to do. And put in a new roof, and put in a new boiler, and it will add on to your costs when you actually wanna go purchase the property.
Okay.
The other thing is you want to, you know, make sure the utilities are separated. And if the utilities are not separated, you might find the tenant sitting there with a t-shirt and shorts and 0-degree weather. So you really would, when you go to buy a multifamily, you really want to make sure that the utilities are separated. And if not, how much would it cost to separate them? Because I've been a landlord for 30 years, and it's been a big pet peeve of mine, to make sure that they're not spending your money, you know, with the utilities, or you can get buried with that amount of money being thrown out
Where's
there for
Anthony?
electric and gas, water and sewer. You know,
I left some on
Oh, I just got.
is it Renee?
Yeah, it's Renee, I
Oh,
just got.
goodness, hey, Renee, I hear you. I also included this, it's called annual property data that I handed out. I don't know if I sent it to you.
Yes, hold on, we get that up, oh, hold on, wrong direction, here we go, here we go, here we go.
Okay.
I think this, yes, here we are.
Okay, then, well, all right, this, I think I sent you the other one.
No,
But
you
anyways, to get to the, so you get to this potential rent income, take out the vacancy losses, so it's, let's say you notice there's about 5 or 10% vacancy in the area that you're looking at. You gotta factor that in to see how much rent you're gonna be getting in there to call what's called the effective rental income. Now, plus other income, you could have washing machines in there. You know, you could have vending machines in there, that would be other income that you enjoy. And then you get the gross operating income. And then you take out the operating expenses to get to the net. And then this is where this handy little annual property data sheet comes into play, and you just, you know, go through it. We just went through the first couple, potential rental income, less the vacancy. And then you have to factor in property taxes, how much you gotta pay in that, property insurance. Is there somebody hired to maintain the property?
And on that note, you have to think like the bank. Because whether there is or isn't management or vacancy, the bank's going to factor it in. So if your
Yes.
owner thinks, oh, I'm managing it myself and making more money, you normally have to call a bank and say, how much are you going to factor in on this for management? How much are you going to factor in for vacancy? Because until someone in the profession shows them there's a reason to vary from their number, they could hack off 10 to 20% of your total gross income, just being like, no, we minimum require 10% management fee, 5% vacancy.
Mhm.
Maybe you have no management, no vacancy.
Right, and you'll find that a lot out there. You'll find that, you know, like Chris said, the owner is the manager. The owner is the social worker. I don't know, but you know, and they're, so they don't really rarely pay themselves. They just think, oh, the income they're getting off the property is what they're getting. But you know, I just threw in a number like for vacancy loss, like approximately 10%. Now that would vary from place to place, depending on the location, and then the offsite management, like around 6%, 7%. But yeah, this is right, you gotta factor that all in. And certainly look up all the utilities, you know, call the city and find out what the utilities are, call NYSEG, find out what the utilities are. 'Cause that can eat you alive. Maintenance expenses, wanna know how much the landlord pays for that, or you might be hiring a tenant. And to do that, to enjoy lower rent.
And there you want to know about that little thing, because if your person is looking at the rent, it says, oh, it's $1,000 a month, and really he's only being billed $200 a month. Well, that changes the math drastically, so.
Right, so you need to know all that stuff up front. You need to know the rent roll. Are they up to rent? They getting evicted? How long have they been there? And then, of course, the lovely leases, but I looked at Chris, because we looked at some leases that were
Crazy. We're just gonna sum it up as crazy.
crazy, horrendous, whatever you wanna call it. So, but you wanna know what the leases say and what the tenants are paying and not paying, the landlord's paying. Towards the upkeep of the building. How much does the landlord have it set aside for capital expenditures?
Parking lots are my favorite one. They're the first impression people have a property, and when they're not maintained.
Well, parking lots are your favorite, roofs are my favorite. But.
We cover both ends of the top and the bottom of the spectrum here.
Right, so, yeah, so. Typically, in a management, you should be setting aside month to month, like, or at least 10% of your. Of your gross rents. Set aside your capital reserve. And you'll know when you go to a piece of property if someone's actually taking care of it, you know what I mean, like you'll see it, like if, like Chris mentioned, the parking lots. If they're ready, no, if they're taking care of it.
And it's most important for leasing, because the tenants or the tenants reps are gonna look at that office building, shopping center, and like, or a multifamily investment and go, oh, there's so much work here. And they're gonna chop that right off the top of the price before they even do anything else. And they're like, no, we know how much this is. And you can sell a building, just like a house, when you say paint works miracles in commercial too. Someone painted their strip center, and about 4 weeks later, it was sold. They really hadn't put it on the market. Someone came in and saw it just had a fresh coat of paint, had new striping on the parking lot, made them offer they couldn't refuse. So paint in a nice striped fresh parking lot, tenants like it because it looks fresh, it looks current, it looks taken care of. And the same with multifamily. If you are looking at the multifamily and the hedges and the shrubs and the grounds don't look inviting, what type of tenants are you going to end up getting?
An old architect used to say, paint hides all sins.
Almost all of them, yes.
Almost all of them, yep. So we digress a little bit there, but certainly multifamily is interesting, but it can be intricate. I mean, you gotta really dig. I've got to make sure that a lot of the information is there.
What about
Yeah.
COO? Can you talk about COO?
Yeah, that's a good one.
You can talk more on that because you just had that experience in Rochester with the commercial versus
Oh,
residential.
right, okay, thanks, Chris. Thanks for So, one of my clients asked me to look into CFO, certificate of occupancy, and I found out that primarily it was related to people living in a space as opposed to a commercial, that Red Wing Plaza that we saw. Commercial did not need the CFO, but if you're moving into an actual living space, you have to make sure, like in Rochester, when you change the hands of the deed, you have to make sure it's inspected and living. New people. Deborah's dog.
Yes, it is.
So the CFO will definitely be determining with the deed, and I think they have that same thing over here in they as well.
I'm looking to figure out how to block this sound. Just keep going.
Okay, so anyways,
So-
yeah, that's a good question.
No,
Yeah.
just because I remember a situation where the owners were from Arizona,
Mhm.
somehow there wasn't a COO. So I didn't know what, he was involved with I was just showing for a person, for another realtor. I was just wondering what would happen with that situation if, say, they live out of state, there's no COO. Like, what are the requirements to sell that property?
So they would most likely have to get, if they have the city inspector come in. And then they would have to ask them to bring it up to standards of the for the C of O. For example, say the smoke detectors didn't work. You have to get the smoke detectors working.
So you can't purchase a property without the COO.
Well, it depends on the municipality,
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, C of O is a unique thing to each town and village, whether it's required on this type or that, it has no standard.
Right, so I can check the city register for the living, yes, we need.
Okay.
For the city of Canandaigua, yes. Now, if you go from where I live. They barely, they don't even check. You have to need a C of O to change hands in Gorham, it's.
would be the buyers, the seller's responsibility. to get that.
If I would put it, and I would put it in, you know. I think just well, gotta be some C of O, so the inspector would say. Come in and tell you what you need to bring that up to code. You know, so it's primarily in the city stuff.
So there's a different purchase offer, document for.
Oh, I'll take this one.
Multi-family units.
Yes,
What do you use the residential one?
okay, why don't you take that one, Chris?
Okay.
Do you wanna talk about LOI?
Yes, that's where I'm going with
Yeah.
this. 1 to 4 family falls on the jurisdiction of a standard MLS contract. Outside of that, you're doing a letter of interest to the seller to say you're interested. That is an abbreviated memorandum basically of the terms that are going to be in a contract. Again, the commercial attorneys expect it. They want to see it because they're going to cut this contract custom to their client. Whoever writes it normally has an advantage. So if it's the seller you're repping, you're going to want the seller's attorney to draw up the contract based on the LOI from the buyer. If you're repping the buyer, you're going to want the buyer to draft from the LOI. Whichever side wins is who drafts it. Then it's going to bounce back and forth between the attorneys for a little bit to make them both happy. And then you'll have a purchase offer contract. But yeah, there is no standard contract. Once you enter in commercial over 4 units, you're in letter of intent and the attorney's negotiating and customizing a contract for your client or this certain situation.
Thanks, Chris.
It was shorter than my normal explanation.
So, any more questions before I move on to the meat of the stuff, okay? And then this is a whole bunch of information that, Chris was pointing out to me. There is a, class coming up, it's called Foundations for Success in Commercial Real Estate. It's a fabulous course.
You talk about that, I'll get it up.
Okay, absolutely love it. It gives you an overview of basically the different types of real estate that we talked about and then some. But the nice thing about this course is if you take this and you're like, oh my God, I love this. You might want to consider extending your arm into commercial real estate. As I have, it is 14 credit hours.
Yes, the one that's being offered in June is 14 credit hours.
It's gonna be in June in Rochester. I need to go to Saratoga Springs for this.
Is there another one after June? Okay,
Um,
June.
I'm
I'm not gonna be here.
They're around the country.
They're all around the country, so yeah, but you can, well, I wouldn't recommend taking it online. I did take one online and it was horrible, but, yeah. But this is, coming up June 22nd, June 23rd. And it's 2 days in Rochester, 14 credit hours, you can get that done and over with. In terms of your requirements, you know what I mean, like the extra requirements that you can do. And it's an open book test at the end. So, and they give you, gosh, I think like 3-4 hours to do it, so I mean, you could go off and have, get a snack or lunch or whatever, come back to it and just
Just don't close the browser window. That does close out the test. So just don't close the browser window. Please don't do that.
Don't do that, right, and then, so it's a great, I love it, I loved it, what's the cost?
440, I
Yeah,
believe,
I got a handout.
but you and I are different because we're in KW commercial, so I just gotta check.
Yeah, if you're in
Yeah, 440.
440, yeah, so, but anybody can take it, I mean, you don't have to be a member. You take it. In fact, if you got any investors that you know that might enjoy this, I'm inviting a couple investors to come to this. Because they might get a great, a good idea.
Investors, it's networking. The reason you do them in person is they're fabulous networking. The Foundations is one of the largest attended courses. McDonald's and Starbucks typically send their staff here. If they're in the real estate department, they have to go through at least 2 or 3 of the courses for CCIM. CCIM is the commercial investment wing of NAR. There is another society for office and industrial. That's Pure Blood's office and industrial, again, a subdivision of NAR. So you've got 2 commercial wings for NAR. CCIM, which focuses on investment, office industrial that focuses on tenants and landlords for office and industrial.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, that's excellent, so yeah, I would highly recommend it, and, if you find that you love it, then, there's a lot more courses that you can take here, and if you find that you're not really interested in it, myself and Chris would be glad to take a referral, and you could expand your referral business as well that way. Or partner up with us, whatever works, Jenny and I can partner up with some things
And this type of course only comes once every 4 to 5 years to Rochester. The last one was negotiations. Yeah, about 5 years ago now. I'm thinking maybe we might be pushing 6. Because I'm licensed for 6, and it was like the year after I was licensed it came up. So yeah, just about 5 years.
So this licensure. To this.
So if you complete this whole series, pass the exams, you do all 4 courses, negotiations plus foundations and the electives, you then can sit for the exam. And this designation is one of the highest ones in the commercial industry. It's not a license, it's a designation. And this one, I have one of the local offices just got it for one of their brokers. And she point blank said, it's scary. Once that designation goes live, she says, I have gotten more business from having that designation because it's a common language and people actively search out people, and larger companies search out people with the designation, and people with the designation typically are like, who in the area has done this? Because we want to speak the same language. So that's the whole idea, is it's a common language of what's expected. When someone says this is the gross rent, this is the net, this is net before, this is the top of the line, this is below the line. Anyone with a CCIM designation is expected to mean the same thing. Sort of like an MLS idea that if you say it's a bedroom, it means this. If you say it's a bathroom, it means that. CCIM is basically to standardize it for investment property.
And was it Ginny?
Yeah.
Very, very good, yes. And there's a whole, I don't know if you can pull up all the other courses that if you ever,
Oh, we can pull them all up.
if you ever want to venture down a different path, I tend to I liked the, when you do construction, because I've got like an architectural background, and, they even do financial analysis for construction, so when you purchase a property, acquire it, and then you can add on a layer of how much it's gonna cost to construct it, in tandem with leasing it out, and then how much is it gonna cost 5-6 years from now when you go to dispose of the property, sell it. They've got all sorts of great formulas, Excel spreadsheets.
And this
stuff that you can
is
enjoy.
just their courses around the country. And I mean around the country. Most of my courses, with the exception of negotiation, I took 2 over in Connecticut, 1 in Georgia, 2 in Florida, 1 on each coast of Florida. Because if I wanted to get them done in any sort of decent time, that's what I had to do. But you've got all these specialty build your own discounted cash flow, the foundations, the negotiations, you've got the ones regarding, where did I do the development? There's that one. Ethics, very similar to NAR ethics, slight verbiage changes. You've got market mitigating risk, transportation, troubled assets,
1031 exchange.
1031 exchanges that Allison's done a lot of.
Yeah,
Again, development workshops, redevelopment, asset and portfolio management. You don't have to take all these courses or get the designation to take these. You can take these on your own. If you just want to know more about one or two of these topics, most of these volatile markets things are offered either self-paced or web, and once in a while in person. Because a lot of these are just mini 1-day courses or 2 days, 4-hour type courses. They're short, quick,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
you learn out
and
of
the
it.
short ones are not too bad, the online, like those were tolerable, but it was just, the one that was. Pizza and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. And business laughing, because I'm just not,
I've done them all in person. I have not done a web one.
oh, you
She was
have-
venturous. She did a web
I
one.
did it well. Anyways, the couple hour ones you can find, you can take then that's fine. But moving on, we also, you guys are welcome to come to, we have Nice Car, which is the Rochester
Mhm.
chapter.
Work on that. Open it up.
This is for the president. But we have it once a month, and we get to go and look at the different projects. We saw one of them, which was with the, office space that we had just told you earlier, and was tried.
I can't spell.
And, it's fun, you know, you go in and have lunch, meet the other, commercial people, and,
Our chapter does, it's basically broker opens. Their broker opens functionally is what they are.
yeah. Pretty much, yeah. Go and see what's going on, and they're all in different buildings, different places, we can see what the different developers are doing, and they, you know, they want us to kind of assist them with renting out the space, the office spaces, or whatever space they're working on.
You can come twice to anything during the year for free, any of our open events. We have 2 paid events typically per year, the golf event and the annual gala for awards. I think those are our only 2 paid events still on the books, and everything else is open and free. You come twice for free. If you want to come more, then you just have to join as a secondary member.
So this is somewhat of an opinion
Mhm.
question. I'm a new agent
Mhm.
and I'm wondering, is this something that a new agent would benefit from? Or is it better to go into this after you've had an extended period of time as a residential agent?
It can go either way.
Yeah, I think it all depends, really, like if you've got a financial background or CPA background and you wanna jump into commercial or, well, I think you actually ended up jumping into commercial without even doing residential, right?
I won't touch residential.
Okay, so he can speak to that better, because I've been doing residential for 10 years, but I'm just. You know, keeping the residential wheel going because that's the bread and butter, but the commercial does take a long time, folks, it's a. You know, to work on it, and finding out,
Like land contracts are 5-year listing agreements.
but that's a good question, like if you've got the background or the, you know, the inkling. You could jump right into it. New or not.
And you can join if you want to just meet and greet and sort of get an idea of what the players are in Rochester, join NISTAR. If you want to get into it in brokerage, there is a option, you can join the commercial division of KW, and there's a whole 8-week program that Allison's already done.
Yeah, you took it too. So,
Yeah, you took it once it was figured out.
Oh, okay, yeah, so it is an 8-week program and it's very like, it's 6 hours each week, very intense in your homework.
Your Thursdays are booked.
Thursdays are booked and you like that one little rent. Roll thing that I showed you, that was one of my pieces of homework, so I had to go around and make sure I knew what the rents were for candidate, you know, and then I had to study. I did the salon, you know, what was the business of the salon was like, you know, how much do they cost? How much can you rent for it? Whole bunch of stuff, they just teach you anything and everything in commercial every aspect, how to approach it, how to talk to people about it. And I thought it was great. I really.
And how to qualify people quickly.
Right, qualify people to make sure that they can afford.
And through that, can you get the designation?
Yeah, well, through that you get like,
They have a certificate made for KW for like you've done the nucleus program. There isn't a designation from that. The designation comes from one of the societies of NAR.
right, so
They're
that-
eligible to do real estate if you have taken the KW program.
yeah, I would say so. It would, you would become a practitioner, what they call it, and they've given you a lot of information, plus.
Monthly product updates.
Right, monthly product updates, you could also talk to people, other KW agents, like for example. They give courses every week in Pittsburgh, Learner.
I just did that. I teach the Real Next course, so that's the commercial CRM instead of command. That's the commercial CRM. We have some of our RPR trainers from Louisiana do the commercial use of RPR. We've got Allison's favorite 1031 bankers on a couple times a month. We've got all sorts of different people. We've got different regional calls. Todd coordinated the Western New York with the New York City, Pennsylvania, New England's. So it's a one joint call a month for everyone in the region. I'm also licensed out of Florida, so we get a regional Southeast call every month. And you've got between product divisions, regional calls, and training, your calendar is pretty well booked with keeping up on the market.
And what's nice is you can reach out to these guys. Like I was looking for a campsite for my friend Sarah. And I said, oh, hey, just tell me new, need some help. So I got an agent out of California. And it's very spot on. He's been in the business for 25 years. And he helped me right out with what to look for, how to put together the letter of interest, letter of intent for the campsite. I mean, the people there are really helpful with what you need.
Yeah, and it's you have a giant network, and there are specific maps coaches also for commercial. She has one,
Yeah.
there's one that does an onboarding. So if you've done nucleus, then there's like a 5-month one that Dale Donovan heads up, and she mostly does, where it's like once a week or once every other week for like 5 months. And it's a short, just sort of check-in. Here's processes, here's implementing what you learned in nucleus in your market. It's a nice sort of freshman type feel, like, okay, everyone's getting into this, we're all in the same boat. And she'll work with you to either move you into a team, into operating on your own independently, recommend product deep dives with other MAPS coaches that are specialty product division leaders. Also, there's another program called 7 Figures in 90 Days, which is led by one of the heads of KW Commercial. That is boot camp. That is, I believe, Bold, Ignites, and something else like all mixed into one for commercial. And you get pretty much your days are booked. She books your schedule up and you are time blocked and everything is put in front of you, like make these calls, make these contacts, do this research, produce these things, send these mailers, and go. And you've got 90 days of that to be at $1 million pipeline.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I know we put a lot at you. But yeah, you're welcome. Always welcome to come to one of our luncheons or reach out to us.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other?
I'm not running away. I just don't have someone else.
Oh, you do, okay. Any other questions? I know Jenny
Thank you.
did this. You're welcome.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Anytime. Too much. Too much. I'm trying to pare it down.